He didn't even look up when he said it. Tina thinks we can't afford extra mouths right now. He was talking about me, his mother, and all I could do was put the dinner plate back in the cabinet. We were standing in the kitchen, soft jazz, humming from the speaker like it always did around 6:30. I had just set the table, 3 plates, 3 glasses, and a folded napkin on each. Roasted chicken garlic rice and buttered green beans. I'd even made that little honey mustard sauce Derek liked, just like I used to when he came home from soccer practice with grass stains on his socks and a scraped knee. Now he was 35, and apparently I was an extra mouth. Tina didn't say it to my face. She never did. She'd simply mutter things as she passed by groceries don't grow on trees, or this house wasn't built for guests. But Derek, he was always the buffer, or tried to be, until tonight. I looked over at him frozen with the salad tongs still in my hands. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. It's just, we didn't plan for this to be permanent, Mom. You've been here a while, 3 months. 3 months since I sold the house your father and I built from scratch. 3 months since I handed you $12,000 from the sale to help with the mortgage. 3 months since I stopped sleeping through the night. I placed the tongs on the counter. Permanent, I never said I was staying forever. Derek sighed. Tina and I just need space to focus, and we're looking at some fertility options, and it's just a lot. I nodded slow. So this is how it ends. Not with a fight, not even with a thank you, just with dinner that no longer has a seat for me. That night I packed my things, 2 suitcases, a duffel bag of old photos, and a pair of slippers. No one offered to help. Tina disappeared into their bedroom. Derek stayed in the den pretending to scroll through his phone volume just loud enough to drown out the silence. When I wheeled my bags to the front door, I waited a full minute. Maybe they'd come out. Maybe he'd change his mind. Maybe someone would say, "Wait." No one did. Outside, the air bit through my sweater. The porch light buzzed. A moth batted against the bulb like it wanted in. And I stood there, 61 years old, widowed, used up, and apparently no longer welcome in my own son's home. That was the moment I understood what erasure feels like. It doesn't come with screaming or slamming doors. It comes with a plate, quietly returned to the cabinet, and a mother who no longer belongs at her own table. The room smelled like old dust and someone else's leftovers. The carpet was threadbare. The wallpaper peeled in one corner, like it had given up trying to hold on. The vending machine outside made a sound every 15 minutes like a dying animal trying to sing. But the lock on the door worked. And for $49.95 a night, that was enough. I didn't unpack much, just placed my toothbrush by the sink and hung one sweater on the metal hook by the bathroom door. The rest stayed zipped in the suitcase because people like me don't get to settle anymore. We perch. We pass through. The motel mirror was harsh, too bright, too honest. It showed every line, every sag, every moment I'd swallowed instead of saying what I really felt. I stared at myself for a long time, not because I liked what I saw, but because I didn't recognize her. The woman in that reflection wasn't just tired, she looked faded, like something once vivid that had been washed too many times. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the small duffel I'd carried with me. It was mostly junk, old receipts, a half-used lotion, and a packet of tissues I'd forgotten existed. And then at the very bottom, folded between 2 worn church bulletins, was a letter. The envelope was yellowed soft at the edges. My name written on the front in a looping, almost childlike script, Evelyn, for when you need to remember who you are. It was my mother's handwriting. I don't even remember packing it. I must have tucked it into the bag when we cleared out her things last year after the stroke. I held it for a minute, debating. Then I broke the seal. Inside was a letter. And something else, a small card from a law firm in Boise, Idaho. Ross and Keenan, it read. The ink slightly smudged, but still legible. The letter was short. Just 3 paragraphs. If you're reading this, it means you've lost something. Maybe a home. Maybe more than that. But I want you to know I left something behind for you. Something no one else knows about. Contact Mr. Clifford Ross. Tell him you're my Evelyn. I read it twice, then a third time. The vending machine outside groaned again, but I didn't hear it anymore. Because for the first time in weeks, maybe longer, I felt something stir. Not hope, not yet, but the memory of it. The law office was on the second floor of an old brick building, wedged between a pawn shop and a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and old grease. I almost turned around twice. The stairs creaked. The hallway was lined with diplomas yellowing at the corners. The waiting room had 2 chairs, a plastic plant, and a ticking clock that sounded louder than my own heartbeat. His door was already open. "You're Evelyn," the man said, rising slowly. "You look just like her." Clifford Ross was in his 70s, easy. His hands trembled slightly as he gestured for me to sit. His tie was crooked, but his eyes were sharp, the kind that see through you and into the past at the same time. "You knew my mother?" I asked, unsure what I was really asking. "I did," he said. "And she trusted me." He reached for a drawer, pulled out a thick envelope bound with a red ribbon. He laid it gently on the desk between us like it might shatter. "She came to me 30 years ago," he said. "Before she passed, she left instructions. The envelope was to be released only if someone came in asking someone who used the phrase, 'I'm her Evelyn.'" I couldn't speak. My throat had gone dry. He slid the envelope toward me. "Go ahead," he said. Inside were 2 documents. One was a letter. The other was a copy of a trust agreement legally binding, notarized with my name printed across the top in formal black type, Evelyn Sanders beneficiary. "Your mother," Clifford explained, "was a silent partner in a dental supply chain in the 80s. She invested early, grew the fund in secret. She never told anyone, not even your father." He tapped the paper lightly. "She had this set aside. Quietly. She said if life ever turned on you, this would be the one thing that didn't." My head swam. I tried to remember the woman who had packed lunch for me in wax paper, who hummed Patsy Cline while ironing, who never once mentioned anything more than "we make do." And now, apparently, she'd been quietly planning for me for this moment all along. The final line of the letter she wrote stayed with me. "You won't need this if the world is kind, but if it isn't, use it and remember who you are." I looked up. "How much is in it?" Clifford smiled gently. "After growth and interest, just over $1.3 million. I didn't gasp. I didn't cry. I just sat there, still stunned, as a version of myself began to slip away, and a new one began to form. I didn't touch the money for 3 weeks. I stayed in the motel still, slept under the same threadbare blanket, listened to the same vending machine groan through the night. I wasn't ready to move. Not yet. Because when your whole life has been built around surviving on little sudden abundance doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like a trick. But I started reading. Quietly, carefully. Watched videos on real estate, estate planning, LLC structures, asset protection. Not because I wanted to build an empire, but because I never wanted to be powerless again. I made lists, scratched notes into motel stationery, wrote down phrases like market rate property tax sale and pre-foreclosure. That's when I found it. A listing buried deep in a public auction site, the kind local investors watch like hawks. A duplex in North Spokane, 2 blocks from a grocery store, walking distance from a park. Structurally sound. Tax delinquent. Auction date 2 weeks from Friday. The address stopped me cold. It was Derek's duplex, my son's house. I read it twice, then 3 more times. I zoomed in on the photo. Same gray siding, same crack in the walkway, and a little flash of the potted fern Tina insisted made the porch pop for her content photos. I sat back, heart pounding. This wasn't a setup. This wasn't a plan. It was chance. Or maybe something else. I stared at the screen for a long time. I could close the tab. I could walk away. But then I remembered the sound of Derek's voice that night. Low, casual, indifferent. Tina thinks we can't afford extra mouths. I remembered how he never looked up from his phone, how no one walked me to the door, and I thought maybe I don't want revenge. But maybe I want the choice. That night I created an LLC under a trust. Named it Sierra Blue Holdings after the lake my mother once took me to when I was 7, when I got scared and she whispered, "Even when the world is loud, you don't have to be." I filed the paperwork, quietly, funded the account through the lawyer's office, and on the morning of the auction, I submitted a sealed bid. No one else saw it coming, not even me. The paperwork cleared in under 10 days. I was the legal owner of the duplex, both units, the land it sat on, and the garage Derek used to store old exercise equipment he swore he'd sell someday. The property manager, a kind woman named Dana I hired through the LLC, began issuing standard notices. Nothing dramatic, just business. Rental agreements were to be reviewed, rates adjusted to reflect current market value. Maintenance would be brought up to code. Tenants had 30 days to respond. Most shrugged. A retired couple in Unit A said they'd been expecting it. Another tenant even thanked Dana for the hallway lighting we'd already fixed. But Derek and Tina, they lost it. I didn't see it, of course. I didn't have to. Tina took to Instagram immediately. A selfie with messy hair and a mug of coffee. Caption: Landlord greed is out of control. Triple rent. In this economy, we're being punished for trying to live. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments full of outrage. She never mentioned that their previous rent was far below market value, that they hadn't paid property taxes in over a year, that their mortgage had quietly defaulted, and the city had sold their future while they were busy making smoothie videos. Derek emailed the LLC's general inbox. Subject: urgent. Rent increase dispute. This new rent amount is outrageous. There must be some mistake. We've lived here 3 years and never missed a payment. Please advise on appeal options. Derek Sanders. Dana forwarded the email to me. I read it 3 times, then smiled. Not from spite, from clarity. He still thought he had power. That someone somewhere owed him comfort. That rent was a courtesy, not a contract. Dana replied on behalf of Sierra Blue Holdings. Per your lease terms and city code. The revised rate reflects current market value plus maintenance liabilities incurred from the previous owner. No exemptions. SBH Management. The next day, Tina posted another story. A shot of their refrigerator. Empty shelves. Caption: Some people inherit wealth. Others inherit suffering. She didn't know how close she was to the truth. That the woman they discarded the extra mouth they couldn't afford now held the deed to every wall around them. And all I had done was follow the rules. On paper. In silence. They had thrown me out like excess, but I was never the weight. I was the foundation. The HOA meeting was held in the community center down the block, a beige building with flickering lights and bad coffee. I arrived early, not because I was eager, because I needed to see the room empty before it filled with noise. I wore a slate gray blazer over a cream blouse, minimal makeup, hair tucked neatly behind my ears, professional, unremarkable, unforgettable if you looked long enough. I signed in as E. Sanders, just as Dana instructed, and took a seat in the third row near the side door. At 6:07, Derek and Tina stormed in. Tina looked furious, arms crossed, sunglasses still perched on her head despite the fluorescent lighting. Derek's jaw was tight, the kind of clenched that signaled he was ready to pick a fight. They didn't see me. Not yet. The HOA president, an affable man named Greg, called the meeting to order. There were updates about landscaping schedules, mailbox locks, and a proposal for installing bike racks. Then he got to the final item. We'd like to thank the new property owner of 714 and 716 Roseview for their improvements. The ownership was recently transferred to Sierra Blue Holdings, and we're pleased to welcome them as part of the community. Tina leaned over to Derek, whispering something. He raised his hand. Yeah, hi. We've been trying to contact whoever that is, because what they're doing, it's not okay. Greg stayed composed. They've sent a representative tonight, if anyone has questions. All heads turned. I stood. Tina blinked, confused. Derek tilted his head, squinting. Good evening, I said, calm. My name is Evelyn Sanders. I'm the owner of Sierra Blue Holdings. The silence wasn't loud. It was deafening. Tina's mouth dropped. Derek stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. You, he barked. This is some kind of sick joke. I turned to face him fully. No joke, Derek. Just a legal purchase. Public auction. All above board. You manipulated this. You raised our rent to what punish us. I stayed still. I adjusted the rate to market standard. I've done nothing you didn't once suggest I do, find something more stable. He stepped forward, fists balled, but Tina reached out, stopping him. You don't get to do this, he hissed. You're just... Careful, I said softly. You're standing in my building. Choose your next words like you're paying for them. He froze. Greg cleared his throat. Let's keep it civil, folks. Questions can be directed to management after the meeting. I returned to my seat. Derek didn't. He stood there simmering, but for the first time, he had no idea what to say. The first voicemail came the next morning. Hey, Mom, can we talk? I didn't know it was you. I just look... Things are tense right now. Can we just... talk? I didn't respond. 2 days later, another one. Mom, Tina's freaking out. She says we're going to have to move. I know things have been... complicated. But this isn't right. Can't we meet? Please, I didn't answer that one either. Because I finally understood. They weren't calling to reconnect. They were calling to survive. Tina posted less and less. Her usual workout clips and smoothie tutorials gave way to long gaps. Then came the cryptic captions, people show their true colors when the cameras are off. Dana forwarded another email from Derek. It had no subject line. We need to renegotiate. This can't continue. We're drowning here. Don't make us beg. But they already had. They just didn't realize it yet. I sat in my new short-term rental 2 zip codes away, drinking chamomile tea and watching the sun creep across the hardwood floor. I could have answered. I could have offered a reduction or a payment plan, or even just a conversation. But I didn't. Because I wasn't their safety net anymore. I wasn't the pantry they ran to when they were empty. I wasn't the extra mouth. I was the roof. And this time they would feel every inch of what it cost to stand under it. The porch light stayed off for weeks. The same one that used to flicker on automatically when I stepped outside after dinner. Now it stayed dark, cold, unwelcoming. Dana kept me updated in small professional notes. Tenant in Unit B submitted partial rent. Utilities appear unstable. Neighbor reports frequent arguing. I never asked for details, but they came anyway, the kind you don't need a camera to see. Tina had sold her car. Derek had picked up late shifts at a warehouse across town. The front lawn, once her prized background for Instagram content, had gone dry and patchy. The porch fern wilted and disappeared. I passed by once. Not to gloat, not even to watch, just to remember. Their window blinds were drawn. Trash bins sat overflowing by the curb, and through the windshield of my parked car, I saw them. Derek slouched on the couch, Tina in a hoodie scrolling furiously through her phone like it owed her something. They looked smaller. Not thinner, not weaker. Just less certain. Less inflated. A week later, Dana sent a report about a noise complaint. Raised voices. Slamming doors. Something about you said we'd be fine and this is all your fault. The neighbor who filed it added a note. She cried on the porch for a while. Didn't say anything. Just sat there. I read it 3 times. Then I closed the file. Because I didn't need to know more. I didn't need to tally the pain or measure the discomfort. This wasn't punishment. It wasn't revenge. It was consequence. And consequence is often quiet. The kind that creeps in between unpaid bills and empty fridges. The kind that grows in the silence after you realize no one is coming to fix it. And still they waited. The porch light never turned on. The phone never rang from my side. The door never opened again. And somewhere in all that stillness, they began to understand I meant it this time. I sold the duplex in early spring. Dana handled everything. The new owners were a local housing co-op ethical fair, the kind of people who still believed in dignity between walls and leases. I didn't keep the building because of what it had become. I let it go because of what I had. I bought a modest craftsman home just 20 minutes away. 2 bedrooms, a red door, a little porch swing that creaked gently in the evening wind. The backyard had a raised garden bed, still empty, but I imagined tomatoes someday, maybe rosemary too. No one knew my name here, and I liked it that way. The mailbox read E. Blue. Not Sanders. Not Mom. Just me under the name of the company I created when I was still invisible. Sierra Blue Holdings. Sierra for the lake my mother once took me to. Blue for what I felt for far too long. I hung a small painting in the hallway, a watercolor soft strokes of a lake surrounded by pines. I'd never been back to that lake, but I carried it in my bones. Then one day, a letter arrived. No return address. Just a single name on the envelope, Mom. Inside was a photo, Derek, maybe 17, arms around my shoulders, both of us laughing, squinting into the sun. The paper had a crease in it like someone had carried it around too long, unsure whether to send it. The note on the back read, I don't know how to undo it, but I remember who you were to me. D. I sat down on the porch swing with the photo in my lap. I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. I just folded the picture back into the envelope and slipped it into the drawer beside my bed, the same one where I kept my mother's letter, the trust paperwork, and the motel room key I'd never thrown away. Not to remember the pain. To remember the climb. Because this wasn't about apologies. I never needed one. This was about becoming someone I could recognize in the mirror again. Not the faded version, not the ghost they tried to erase, but the woman who built a new door, painted it red, and walked through it not as someone's burden, but as someone whose name now opened doors all on its own. The end. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, share your thoughts below. And remember, your voice still matters no matter who tried to silence it.